Every time a new camera drops, the internet explodes. People either love it, they hate it, they nitpick and look at every single spec and complain about it, and forget that the majority of people buying these cameras, beginners, people getting into photography, people getting into content, don't actually care about the same features that we complain about. Today I wanted to talk about what's happening in the camera space right now. If you go on social media, Threads, Instagram, TikTok, you will see a massive amount of hate towards two specific cameras right now, the Sony FX2 and the Fujifilm X-Half. I have never seen so much negativity and so much hate towards these two cameras with any other camera ever released before. So to give you some context of what I'm talking about, the Sony FX2 was released a couple days ago, and it's using the same 33 megapixel full frame sensor as a Sony a7 IV, which I'm actually recording this video on right now. And the thing that people don't like is that Sony took basically an a7 IV that came out years ago and just made it into an FX body. Just reusing the same sensor. We didn't get any like crazy new features. It's basically just an a7 IV in an FX body. And Sony has done this before. They did it with the a7C II. And honestly, I don't think it's that big of a deal. There's some other people out there that are like hating and complaining about the features of this camera and how they reuse this. And it's like, I get it, especially at a time where everyone's expecting Sony to release a new FX3. But if the camera isn't for you, if it doesn't fulfill your needs and what you need in a camera, then just wait for the next one. I don't know what to say. I think people forget that just because a camera comes out with open gate doesn't mean that every other camera going forward needs to also have open gate, needs to have every single feature that camera had and more. There's people who prioritize different features in a camera for whatever they're using it for than what I would prioritize in a camera, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think the majority of creators that are actually talking about the negatives, pointing out the problems with the specs, or making videos about why they don't think it's a great camera, I think is really important. But the people who, don't give any context about what they're talking about or why it's a problem or why it doesn't work for them, and they're just straight up saying, this is a shit camera, why did Sony come out with this? That's where I just don't like what I'm seeing, because that puts a bad taste in the beginners who maybe are interested in that camera, but now you're not giving them any context to why that camera is shit. Like, you're just saying it's shit and you're not giving a valid reason why or why you think it is. So I don't know. I think I really agree with the creators that are being super transparent. That is something that we need, who are doing it in a way where they're explaining all the reasons why it doesn't make sense. If you want to know my first thoughts on these two cameras, because obviously I don't have them, I haven't tested them, but I was briefed on the Fujifilm X-Half before it launched and before it released. We'll start with the FX2. I might be biased because I shoot with an a7 IV and I absolutely love this camera. I really don't see any problems with the FX2. The 4K 60 crop really doesn't bother me that much. Even when I am shooting in it, I'm usually shooting with wide lenses, so it really doesn't affect me. And you get an internal cooling fan. And for a lot of people, the main issue with the a7 IV was that it overheats. And so if I sold my a7 IV, or I was looking to buy another a7 IV as a second body, I'd buy the FX2. Okay, you wouldn't believe it, but we're literally just talking about overheating, and the a7 IV just powered off because it overheated. That was the first time I've ever had in my history of owning this camera, the camera to shut off because of overheating. Anyway, taking that into consideration, this is why I would buy the FX2. I get the exact same camera. I get everything that I love about the a7 IV. I get its 33 megapixel sensor, its hybrid abilities. I get that in the FX2 with an internal cooling fan where I never have to worry about it overheating. That right there is a game changer for a lot of people. I still can't get over that happened while we were talking about overheating. But it just doesn't make sense to me where You know, we're getting more options in the FX line, aside from, you know, the expensive ones. We have the FX3, the FX30, and now we have kind of like a middle, more hybrid option for those people who still shoot photos, but maybe more video and they need that internal cooling fan. So I don't know how you can be angry about that. With the Fujifilm X-Half, my opinion changes depending on how I look at it. If I look at it from a photographer's perspective, yeah, it's not a camera that would suit me or be good for me. It lacks raw photos. It only shoots like 1080p footage. And personally, I would just much rather buy something like the XM5 where I get those professional features and it is a way better camera, like real camera. If I look at it from the perspective of someone who is not a professional photographer, doesn't do pro video, and just wants a camera experience rather than shooting on their phone, this camera makes sense. You don't have to worry about buying lenses. You get all these cool effects and these cool features. You have an app where you can control and look at your developed photos, things like that. Those are features that I would prioritize over things like raw photos that I would never, ever need in a camera. I wouldn't even know what to do with these raw photos. I had 4 messages in the past week, people that I know messaging me like, hey, I'm looking at buying the A7 III, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, you know that the A7 IV exists, right? And also I would hold off because I think Sony's releasing the A7 V at some point this year. And they're like, well, I don't care. Like, I just want a camera that fits my budget. Like, I don't need all these other professional features. I had someone ask me, is the A7S III still a good camera? And I'm like, yes, but that's essentially the FX3, so why don't you just go with the FX3? And they're like, well, I want the viewfinder in the A7S III. You know, it made me realize that people are going to buy based off their budget, what they want in a camera, and a lot of people that are getting into it aren't chasing every single new camera. They don't care about the new features. If you're new, just remember that buying new gear isn't going to fix the lack of skill, vision, and creativity. And I think as reviewers, it's important for us to point out the pros and cons and what a camera doesn't have for the viewers to know, but it's also important to look at that camera in the way it was intended. It's like me pulling out a little point and shoot digicam and complaining that it doesn't have all these pro features. Now, don't get me wrong, on the flip side, there are going to be a lot of people like pro cinematographers, pro videographers, even creators where the FX2 doesn't make sense. It doesn't have a lot of features that we've been wanting. Like, for example, open gate, especially in 2025, in the time that we're in where a lot of other cameras have open gate and we're filming a lot of content horizontally, but also vertically, and it's just annoying that we aren't getting it yet. So the issues that come with the Fujifilm X-Half, the Sony FX2, I'm not disagreeing with those. Those are issues for a lot of people. I'm just saying that there are creators, there are beginner photographers who are looking at these cameras, and a lot of them don't care about the same features that we care about, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I know a little bit of a different video today, but I do want to hear your thoughts on this and thoughts about these cameras. If you want to see when I do get the X-Half or the FX2, then make sure to subscribe. Leave a like if you do agree with what I'm saying in this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.